It's pretty audacious to name a game Maximum Apocalypse. I mean, it really sets a high bar for what's going to be happening in the game. And this is a game by Mike Nade. He sent me this copy of the game, and I thank him for that. He also sent me a copy of the Gothic Horrors expansion to it, and this is newly out as of this video. Here, I'll show you the top for it. That's what I was looking for. Maximum Apocalypse and Gothic Horrors. So that's even crazier in a way. We're going to take a look at the contents, mostly of the expansion, and just discuss a little bit about what this game is, what it does. There's a lot of videos out there on it, so you may be familiar with it already. It is a card game where you are traveling through various environments that are modular, and you have them coming up on tiles. And in essence, what you're doing is following various scenarios that come about. I've got this one set up here, the vamp vaccine. The damn vamps spread like wildfire, took our world for themselves. Lucky as time wore on, we figured out how to kill these creatures. Word is this smarty pants may just be able to cure their thirst. Not really sure what that means, but basically what you're doing in this game, I'm playing two characters here, and we'll talk about how that works. One is the priest, who comes as part of the Gothic Horrors expansion, and the other is the fireman. And what you're doing is you're traveling through this world, and you are looking for various objective pieces, things that you will scavenge from the world in order to create a vaccine to deal with these vampires. So we need to collect an old book, an antidote, and a medical supplies, and get the scientist, who is right here attached to our priest, get him to the hospital where he can discover the vaccine, and then to the factory to produce it. So that is the basis of your story. And you are having to search through various decks of cards that are preceded by you to have a variety of things that you can pick up and scavenge. And of course, in there also you have pre-set up the fact that there is at least one old book, one antidote, and one medical supplies, but you have to find them. Depending on your location, you will be able to search from 0 to 3 of those decks, and they're indicated by this color token here, or this color circle, as to what deck it is. And if there is no color circle, you can't scavenge in that area. And then all of the environments have some impact sometimes when you reveal the tile, entering, exiting, or when you're there. And they have a monster value, and this is going to be indicated irrelevant when you roll to spawn monsters. The game and the sequence of play is fairly simple, and I'm not going to walk through it. I'm just going to demonstrate a couple of turns and talk about really what this game offers in this kind of a little mini genre of mechanics. And what I mean by that is that this game is very similar mechanically to something like Pathfinder, where you are building or preceding locations. In that case, all the locations are just cards. You don't have the tiles, but you have to set up the locations, and then you travel around and try to get things from the locations. Some of the negative comments I've read online about the long setup time for a relatively simple game are because you need to, before you set up to play, pull the relevant location tiles that you're going to need and pull the relevant scavenge decks. So here's an example for the scenario that we're running here of what you need to find in terms of the map tiles to lay out, and then also how you need to seed these scavenge decks. And you know, the comments there, it does take a while. I didn't time it. I meant to. I think it took me about 25 minutes to set this one up. And for a fast game, I understand that that may seem a lot. On the other hand, everybody always wants replayability and variability, and really, how else can you get it unless you're doing something that's modular like this, where it changes from scenario to scenario? The scavenge decks are, on the one hand, a little bit limited because you don't have too many different types of scavenge cards throughout the game. And so you'll find a lot of the same ones, but nevertheless, you have to populate them appropriately. The other thing is, if you're really looking to sort of game the game, as it were, you will remember, or make sure you remember, in what color scavenge deck are the needed items. So you can focus on getting to those color locations and continuing to scavenge there. But be that as it may, many of the scenarios do require that you expose every tile. So you need to travel around, or at least have cards that allow you to reveal every tile in many cases of the game. As I mentioned, it's a fairly simple game to play, easy to get into. There's not a lot of overhead in terms of the sequence of play or the rules. There is no deck building in this game. Every character comes with their own pre-made deck of cards, so you just grab that deck of cards. Your deck will change during the course of the game in terms of what you find and scavenge from, but if you play the priest, you're always going to be playing the same cards, and ditto for every other character. So coming in here, we can see the situation. It is the priest's turn. Now, playing solo, there's two different ways, or a suggested way to play, where you can take the cards from both characters and hold them as one hand, and then use those cards on either character. When I first read that, I thought it sounded great, because sometimes I don't like to have to manage two different hands, but as I played it, I found that, in fact, one of the strengths of this game is how the characters are very thematic, and what cards they have and what they can do is really thematic to that character. So I decided to just play as I've been playing, two-handed, and keep the character cards separate. There is a lot of co-op in the game, because a lot of what weapons somebody might have may only actually be of use to getting rid of monsters or enemies that are attached to somebody else if they are far away from you. And we'll take a look at the little reference card that explains the ranges of the various weapons. So a short-range weapon is just your own tile. This is the mid-range sort of weapon, so it's if this is you, this would be the mid-range, like orthogonally just around you. And then this is the long range, although the long range cannot target the space that you are currently in. So what that would mean is, if you ever did play this just as a sole character, you could not really ever use your long-range weapons, because you would always be in the space where the only character would be. So that's just something to note. I'm not sure it's recommended to play just with one character, or maybe that's not even in the rules, but if it were in the rules, you wouldn't be able to use any of those long-range weapons unless you house ruled it somehow differently. Some of these weapons have ammo, and they will come in with a certain number of ammo, and then you will be instructed to expend that ammo as you use your weapon. So this Desert Eagle here for the priest, it's a mid-range weapon that came in equipped with 3 bullet tokens, and every time we use it to deal 6 damage to a target, we have to get rid of one of them. The character cards are fairly simple in terms of what they are showing. There's going to be showing you the health. This is a sneak value. You roll 2d6s, and if you get at or below that number, you could potentially sneak by an enemy that is not yet revealed. So if I were in the farm and I wanted to pass through the amusement park without having to reveal this enemy, and I were the priest, I would need to sneak by taking 2d6s and rolling 6 or less. If I rolled more, then I would need to pull in from the enemy deck, turn that token into an enemy, and encounter that enemy. Anytime you encounter an enemy, they become attached to you, and they will follow you around until you dispense with them, or they dispense with you. And very early on in the game, unfortunately, our priest drew Frankenstein to follow him, and Frankenstein has large health, so he's almost gone now, but he keeps doling out every time. He keeps doling out 3 wounds to us. You may wonder, if he has so many wounds and he keeps dealing out wounds, why is my priest so healthy? Well, he has a passive attribute, and every character has either a passive or an active attribute, and he's very determined. And what this means is that every time he draws a card from his deck, and you do that every turn, he will restore 1 of his own health to himself. So you can see that if you take the time to think about the mechanic and the idea of the character, it is very thematic. Looking here at the fireman, his attribute's not a passive one. It is an action. It costs an action to do, but he can do just a punch. He can deal 2 damage to a short-range target, somebody right in his thing. You can just whack him if he wants to as one of his actions. You get 4 actions each turn, unless there's some kind of card that gives you extra, and there are a few cards like that. So you need to use the actions wisely, because moving is an action, scavenging is an action. Certainly doing anything that says action is an action. If it says passive, it just happens. But if it says action, you're needing to expend 1 action to do it. And the final bit of housekeeping I want to point out is that you have a carry limit of 4 also. And these are the carry weights or amounts that something is taken up. So you can only have 4 things, unless you have a card that's a backpack that might give you something else, or maybe there's a character I haven't yet played. I haven't played all the characters who can carry more inherently. I'm not really sure if that's the case, but some things take 2 slots and some things take 1. So the fireman here is currently carrying 3, so he can only pick up something and carry it if it is a 1 item, or he would have to discard. Oops, this is definitely not part of the game. No. He would have to discard something to pick up something else and carry it along with a shotgun and the fire helmet he is wearing. As I mentioned, it's the scientist's turn, and he's got, the first thing you do in your turn is you draw a card. So he drew a rosary card, which is takes up 1 in the backpack. He, I should say, is full up right now. He's got this incense burner that takes 2. This is great because it will do 3 damage to all monsters attached to us. He has his gun that I showed you earlier that takes up 1. And then the scientist, he's got to carry the scientist around as part of the scenario, and that takes up 1 slot. So he's really effectively working only with 3 slots available, which means that if we want to use any of these cards that take up a slot, we're going to have to lose something. So he's got he picked up a rosary, which would allow him to move 2 monster tokens to an adjacent tile. And we don't really have, we don't have a lot of monster tokens out right now. So this is not super crucial, although it could come in handy later. He picked up a holy book, which will allow him to remove a monster token from any tile if he had used that action. And Arcane Knowledge will allow him to look at the top 3 cards of any deck to draw 1 and discard the others. And this really does mean any deck, I think. It means even the Fireman's deck, I think. It says any deck, but in Scavenge decks, it could even include the monster deck, I suppose. He could look through 3 monster cards and discard 2 and then attach 1 to himself if he wanted to as a fast action. I should clarify as well, to use, for example, the rosary costs 2 actions in effect if you're using it in the same turn. It costs an action to place it in your backpack or place it on your tableau, and then it is an action to use the card. These are not use and discard unless they have this icon here. He's dealing with Frankenstein here, and I think Frankenstein's down to, let's see what he's got. 10, 12, right, he's got 2 health left, so we probably want to just get rid of Frankenstein here. We could do that in any number of ways. I mean, it's overkill to waste an ammo that deals 6 damage when we only need to get rid of 2. The incense burn is going to deal 3 damage to all monsters, but I think I'll do that. So as my first action, and I should say these tokens here, I didn't clean this up from last time. These tokens here do not come with the game. They are actually from the Marvel game, Marvel Champions card game that I just did a video on, but they work well to indicate when you've taken an action. As mentioned, you only have 4 actions a turn. So for his first action, he's going to burn some incense on old Frankenstein here, dealing 3 damage, and Frankenstein only has 2 health left. So after being attached to him for the better portion of the game so far, Frankenstein may be discarded. In terms of what's going on, the priest is up here in the forest with the fireman and surrounded by who knows what. And the garden here is below. We know what the garden is. You could do a search there, and its benefit is to cure any status effect that you might have. For example, if you were poisoned, dealing with poison, for example, you would want to go to the garden to heal, but we're not. I think I'm going to have the priest do some exploration. I set this up. You can set up the tiles as however you want, at least for many or all of the scenarios. And I set them up to make it a little bit difficult here because it's could be potentially annoying to come into this spot depending on what it is. If there's really negative effects here, and then you'd have to go back through them again. There are some cards that will allow you to reveal tiles without having to go to them, like binoculars you might pick up. I don't have any of those right now. So I'm going to choose for my second action, I'm going to choose to explore, to go somewhere else with this priest and hope for the best. Actually, that was great. We come upon a gas station. When we reveal it, we get a free scavenge from the red deck. So for me, I will take the priest. He will move here and we'll do a red scavenge, which is just pulling a card off the top of the red deck, and we are empty-handed. So we got nothing out of that, unfortunately, but that did take another action. Let's see. I forgot one thing, going back to the priest's passive ability when I pulled in the card. When he gets a card from his deck, which he did, he gets to restore 1 health. So I'm going to take care of that. So he's only down 1 hit point right now. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to explore again. So my third action, I'm going to take a walk up here with the priest and see that we have arrived at a tunnel. And there will be another tunnel card somewhere in this area, but there isn't right now. But once it's revealed, it will allow us to move to it. Unfortunately, we can't scavenge. That's really what I was hoping to do. There's no scavenging in the tunnel. That makes sense. So we have revealed the tunnel, and that was our third action of the game. And for the fourth action of the game, I think what I will do is, I think I am going to do this arcane knowledge. Look at the top 3 cards of any deck, draw 1, and discard the others. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the blue scavenge deck. I'm interested to know what might be in there and to possibly take something. Now, the downside to doing this is I'm going to be having to throw away 2 of the cards. So we got fuel, we got ammo, and then we have an antidote, which will cure all status effects. Now, this is an interesting choice because we know from our scenario that part of the objective is that we need to get an antidote. So this is part of the objective. Now, we also know, and again, this is part of the, I don't know if you want to say difficulty or just fact of the way this game is. We also know, because we did the setup, if we remember, that in the scavenge decks, this is not the only antidote. So, it is what it is. I mean, you're creating the scenario that you are then playing, and that's just, that's not unique to this game, but it's unique to these kinds of games where you are have different scenarios that are meant to be, again, modular and just variable. So I know there's another antidote, but do I want to risk maybe throwing this away? This ammo card is awesome because it would allow me to fully reload a weapon. Not all ammo cards do that. Some ammo cards, for example, I have this one in my hand. This only lets me reload a weapon with 2 bullets. And some will give you more than 2. Some will give you, I think, possibly only 1. So it's a bummer. That's a great card, but I'm going to play it safe, and I'm going to take the antidote, and I am going to discard these other 2 cards. So this is one of the needed objective cards. So we used our arcane knowledge. We'll discard it. That was our 4th action, and that is the turn of the priest in terms of his cards, but we're not done yet. Every turn, what we need to do is we need to increase our hunger level once we are done using our cards. Oh wait, there's one more thing I could do. There are free actions. Once per turn, we could discard 2 cards, and I'm considering these 2, to draw a card. We could do that for free. And we could also fuel up the van or drop off cards at the objective. And again, not clear, the objective here at the hospital hasn't been revealed yet, and we're not there. So we're just going to hang on to that. But I think these 2 rosary cards I'm not that interested in right now, so I'm going to discard them as a free action and get a card. I got a blessing, which will allow me to cure all status effects on a target. I think that, that's the antidote, but I'm using it for something else. So I did that, and then now we need to deal with the hunger. Hunger is kept track of on this D6, and each turn you increase it by 1. So my hunger level is 4 now. If I eat or find food, I can reduce it. If I get to above 6, I need to flip my character card to the hungry side, and the hungry side will be the side that has no innate ability anymore and also has a hunger track. Every time you're hungry, you take additional wounds, you move down the track, and if you ever reach the bottom of this track while you are, before you have eaten, you're dead, you're out of the game, or the game is over, or the game is over. I say or because you can choose to play the game where if one character dies, the game is over, or you can choose to play the game where if one character dies, you can continue on with your other character. So that now is the end of the priest's turn, and now it's the fireman up next. The fireman is in the forest, and he's only got 2 cards right now. He's got this flare, which is an instant card that can attract all monsters in this range to him, which would basically mean pulling them away from the other character. Because when monsters come in, they don't come into an environment really, they come into your play area always. And when you move, they move with you. It's a little counterintuitive. It's something about the game I'd say that bothers me, but that is the way it is. So when it says all monsters in range are attracted to you, you would use this to pull the monsters away from somebody else and not just from the environment. And we have a food here, which will reduce your hunger by 2. Now, our hunger here is at 2. It's going to rise to 3, obviously. We had eaten some food, I think, which is why our hunger is slightly less than the priest's. We could, if we were on the same location as the priest, give the priest this food card, and then the priest could, in a later turn, use the food card. We can't just feed the priest, but we can, as an action, give the priest the card, and then later the priest could, as an action, consume that food. The priest is at 4. We might consider doing that, but our turn begins by drawing a card, and we have Fireman Stamina. We get to move up to 3 spaces and draw a card. Well, that's pretty good. Here's what I'm going to do. I am going to use this, but I'm not going to do too much with it. What I'm going to do is, number 1, I'm going to take my action, so I'm going to indicate that, and play Fireman Stamina. I'm going to move up to 3 spaces, and then at the end of that, I'm going to draw a card. So I will show you what's going on here. The first space I'm moving to is the gas station where I get a free scavenge. So I'm going to do that. And all right, well, so much for that. Somebody's waiting for me in the gas station, and such is the nature of this game. It's actually good because I want to show you some monsters and what happens. So what we do is we immediately draw a monster, and then we discard that card. So we draw just off the top of the deck, and we get a ghoul. So there is a ghoul in the gas station. When he attacks us, we will become poisoned, and if that happens, I'll explain what that means, but I would like to have that not happen. He's got a health of 5, and he will do 2 damage to us. Really what I want to avoid is the poison aspect of it. The damage isn't so bad. However, I'm still in the original turn, so I've only moved once. The second part of the move is going to go up to the let me be here with my friend the priest. And when I am here with my friend the priest, it says once per turn, I can trade scavenge cards with another player. And I have looked this up to see, does it really need to be a trade or can I give a card? And I believe I can give a card. And because I'm a fireman, it's the right thing to do. I'm going to give this food to the priest. So this is a free action. I'm still in the middle of my stamina, but I'm going to give the priest my food, and the priest will be able to consume that food in his next turn. Finally, the third thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come to this place here, whatever it is. Ah, it's a gas station. Great. So I'm going to move into the gas station. I get a free scavenge. Let's hope it's not another ambush. And wow. Wow, wow, wow. All right, well, I came away empty-handed. So a lot of effort for not a lot of benefit in terms of the free, but I did get to show us what is here, which is great because at least we know that, and give the priest some food. So I'm pretty happy overall. I picked up that ghoul now. What can I do about this ghoul? So I discard this card because I've played it. And my hand at this point now is just this flare because I didn't have, yeah, that's my hand. So I can deal 3 damage to one target and 1 damage to all other targets in front of me. There are none. So I could deal 3 damage to the ghoul. It's not going to, it's going to empty my shotgun and I'm still going to get hit by him. So I'm not so sure I want to do that. This is where it does benefit to look to remind yourself of what your colleague over there may have, because we are in short range. Whoops, we are in short range of the priest. So if, I'm sorry, mid-range, I should say. We're within mid-range of the priest. There you go. And obviously also long range. So the priest may be able to help us out with something here. And I'm realizing actually what I possibly could have done, I didn't, so I won't, is when I gave the priest food, he could have given me this ammo, which would be nice because I'm low on my shotgun ammo. But, you know, I didn't do it and I moved away. So that's shame on me for not looking more closely at the cards there. So the priest does have a blessing to cure all status effects on a target for short range. So I would need to be in the same location as him. But knowing that and knowing that I helped him out with the food, I'm not going to waste this. I'm just going to take the damage here and the poison from this ghoul. The poison's going to be a status effect, but I know my friend the priest is going to bless me in the next turn and it's going to be okay. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. And I'm just going to continue back on the move. Actually, what I can do for my second action here is I can come back this way into the tunnel here and stay there. And I think that may be all I choose to do because, let's see, you know what, I'm going to move to the gas station and move back. That's what I'm going to do. Because there's a free scavenge here, for my third action, I'm going to just wandering around the gas stations. Wander in the gas station, I get a free scavenge. Let's hope it's not empty or an ambush. I got some medical supplies. Great. These medical supplies are going to be part of our objective as well. So I'm going to put those into my hand. And then as my final action, I'm going to come back to the tunnel with the priest. And I'm going to hope that hovering here in the tunnel, the priest is going to bless me next time because I am about to be targeted by this ghoul. This ghoul is going to hit me now. My turn is over in terms of my cards. And my hunger needs to increase. And the last thing that needs to happen is take damage from any relevant enemy. And the relevant enemy here is the poisonous ghoul. So he's going to hit me not only for 2 damage, but he's going to poison me. And I will get a poison counter once I find them and put that on me to show that I am poisoned. So here's my poison token, and basically what happens is at the end of every turn, as long as I'm poisoned, I place another counter on me to indicate the poison continues, and I take damage equal to the number of poison counters that I have. So I'm not clear whether this means that I was attacked for 2, I get the poison counter, and I have another um, damage from the poison. It's a little bit vague to me. We'll say yes, but I'm not actually sure if that's true. But when I'm not sure about a rule, I tend to go with the rule that's worse for me. So it doesn't seem like I'm cheating. In any case, that is the end of the turn, the end of the round, and we can start in by the monster spawn. Here's how it works. You will see that there are these revealed numbers, 9, 6, 3, 9, 5, 8, etc. You would roll 2d6s, and if you matched any number, you would put a monster token, spawn a monster on that tile, up to 3 per tile. An alternative way of doing it, and the way that I'm going to do it, is to draw from this bag of tokens. And the bag of tokens, you can modulate the difficulty, and I'll show you in the rules what that means, to make it harder or easier by including in here some blank tokens or some safe tokens or not. I drew a 9. That's not great for us. What this means is we will be spawning on that 9 in the prison. We will be spawning on the mountains and also this gas station over here. Not in the tunnel, luckily. If we spawned where we were, they would come right out attached to us immediately. As it stands here, these are just tokens, and once we enter this area, they will turn into the enemy. What happens then is you leave out the token that caused the monsters to spawn, and you return to the bag any of the other tokens. In this case, there's only 1, but there could have been many more, any of the other tokens that were not in the bag. And I'll show you the rules from the Gothic Horrors expansion to explain the way in which you can modulate the difficulty of the spawn. This is a good opportunity to show you the 2 different rule sets that you get. This comes from the Gothic Horrors, and this is the basic rule set. You can see, first of all, the Gothic Horrors one is longer, and in this case, it actually is useful that way because there's more information. Overall, there are more examples of play and more examples, particularly of the different enemy movements or enemy cards and effects, and examples of a walkthrough of different characters playing the game. So I recommend, if you have both of them, to sort of have the Gothic Horrors, it's a complete rule set, this be your default, because there are also things offered in here that rules that are not in the original, and one of them I'm about to show you, which is this customize the monster spawn. It's an optional rule. It says if you'd like to play with the monster spawn tokens, you take all of the number tokens and include the number of safe and ambush tokens that suit your desired difficulty level. And you can see here that there are, you can have an easy mode where 5 of the tokens in the bag are basically no enemy coming out and no ambush tokens. Ambush tokens meaning that when you draw one, you're going to get a monster no matter what, even if the number doesn't match. It's just going to be 100% monster coming in. So you can see that you can scale this difficulty using the tokens. So I've decided to go with the normal for this, but I like the fact that it's a little bit more flexible than rolling the dice. So we have spawned our monsters, and now we can take a look and see with some monsters here. They've got monsters here now in the gas station, in the mountains. This is a nice place to be because you get to draw a card when you go in there, but now there's a monster. The amusement park is a disaster place anyway, because you've got to, once you reveal it, you discard 3 cards, which stinks, and then when you leave here, you're at the end of that turn, you also have to discard a card and the prison. So all of a sudden things are looking somewhat bleak, but that's where things stand. So we're going to turn to the priest now. At the beginning of his turn, he's going to draw a card, and he gets his priest collar. So he gets immune to hunger, damage, and status effects as a passive quality, which is fantastic because it doesn't cost an action. It does, however, cost 1 to equip. And remember, he is, it's a little messy here. He's got the scientist with him. This is his discard pile. Really need to clean this up. The priest is with the scientist, and he has his Desert Eagle gun. So he's got 2 slots and taken up by that, and he's got his incense burner, which is, let's see, this belongs to this. There we go. He's got his incense burner, which is great because it will deal damage to 3 damage to all monsters that are attached to you. However, this collar is a fantastic item, and at some point soon, I'm definitely going to want to equip that because the benefits of being immune to hunger cannot be underestimated. That said, what we're going to do, the first thing we are going to do is we're going to consume this food because we're at 4, we're in danger of flipping over to our starving side. So we're going to, as our first action, let me clear this away so we can be clear about what's going on here and who's done what. As our first action of this turn, the priest is going to eat the food that the fireman so generously gave him, and we're going to discard that. I try to remember to discard back to the scavenge pile because that makes cleanup a bit easier. He will be able to reduce his hunger down by 2 because he's done that, but it did cost him an action. He now, as saying thank you, he's going to bless the fireman, and this is another action. He will be able to cure the status effects on the target. So he's going to bless the firemen they're both in the tunnel here, and it's a real touching moment in that dark tunnel where the priest is going to put his blessing on the fireman it's going to cost him an action, and the impact of that is to remove the poison status from the fireman who came to his aid with the food. So that is his second action, and now he can move on. So the name of the game really here is exploration and scavenging because we've just got to get stuff. We've got 2 actions to remain. If we go to the gas station, we get a free scavenge, and then we can move to the forest, which forces you to end your turn here or draw a monster. But we would be out of actions anyway, so I think that's a wise thing to do rather than just trying to explore here. So the priest is going to say goodbye to the fireman, leave him in the tunnel, and for his third action, he is going to go to the gas station and scavenge, and he will get some ammo. Awesome. Fully reload a weapon. Fantastic. So he's picked that up, and he's going to end his turn in the forest here where he will have no negative impact because he's not going to move again this turn. So he will not be forced to draw a monster from the forest area where they like to hide. And he's not going to do any free actions. That's going to be the entirety of the card portion of his turn. What he does need to do is to increase his hunger level. So he will go back up to 3. And he would be forced to take any damage from monsters attached to him, but there is none. So that is the end of the priest's turn, and he did his 4 actions. Over to the fireman. So the first thing he's going to do is draw a card. He gets a Wildland Jacket. Once on your turn, you may take an additional action by increasing your hunger. Interesting. Let's see where he is right now. He's got a shotgun. He needs some ammo, and we remember that the priest did pick up something that will allow him to load for free. So the fireman might want to follow the priest into the forest to see if he could persuade him to give him that. He could really use it. He still does need to get rid of this ghoul, and in fact, I'm realizing a little bit of a misplay here because I chose not to put any damage on that ghoul last turn, and so it's going to be a bit of a waste at this point to have gotten rid of that poison because it's just going to come back to me. However, I'm not going to edit that out. It was a mistake I made that I see now. Probably other people realized I was making. So what we're going to do is we're not going to make that mistake again. We're going to deal 3 damage to this target. We're going to take a shot at the ghoul, and we now have an empty shotgun. It doesn't mean we need to discard the shotgun. It just means we can't use it right now. So we're going to put 3 damage on the ghoul, but again, because I failed to do that last turn, the ghoul is still around and is going to poison us again at the end of this turn. But that was our second action of the game, of the turn. We're going to move to the gas station for our third action, do a free scavenge there. Hope we get something. Ooh, we got some ammo. Reload a weapon with 4 bullets. That is our third action. And for the fourth action, well, we have a couple of options. We can follow the priest and hope he gives us the ammo card that he has. He doesn't have any more blessings right now, but maybe he'll get one. So that is a possibility. Oh, back to the priest again. I forgot. I'm sorry. He restored a health when he drew a card at the beginning of the turn. In any event, the fireman has the option to basically follow the priest and end his turn. He's got 1 action left. There's really nothing he can do. He could reload his shotgun with 4 bullets. Maybe he'll do that. I don't like to be carrying around an empty gun. I think as my last action, I'm going to stay in the gas station and I'm going to reload with 4 bullets because got to get rid of that ghoul. And unfortunately, I misplayed that pretty badly. So I'm going to be poisoned again right now. So I've got 4 fully loaded shotgun. However, that cannot prevent the next thing that's going to happen in this turn, which is I will increase my hunger to 4 and I will take 2 damage and a poison from this ghoul again. So we'll indicate the damage and back to the poison, and that is the end of that round of play. And we go next to the spawn phase. We're going to choose a spawn token, and I'll do one more round at least on camera here. We chose a 10, and that is nothing. So we'll just leave that token there. Nothing new comes in, and we will have a look at the priest next. I'm realizing how long this video is and haven't even gotten to cover most of what I want to cover. So quickly just take a look at the priest next turn. He's going to draw a card. Exorcism, mid-range, play on a monster. Treat the chosen monster's printed text box as if it were blank. Okay. What we're going to do, I just want to show you another monster. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time thinking about this action here, but I'm going to move from the forest as 1 action to the garden, which is 1 action here. I will forego a scavenge there. Well, maybe I'll do a scavenge. Nope. I'm going to forego a scavenge here, and I'm going to walk into the mountains. Walking into the mountains is a second action. I get to draw a card when I enter, so I'm going to draw a prayer card. Remove a monster token from each adjacent tile. So if there were monster tokens adjacent to me, I could remove them if I use that card, but there aren't. But I'm coming here because I'm basically seeking out a monster. So I'm going to put the prayer card in my hand, and I'm going to draw in another monster just to show you it is a werewolf. There's werewolves in the mountains. He has a passive effect. If this monster has taken damage, double its attack damage. So he basically has what's in effect a frenzy attack. And here's a great look at the art. I have not called attention to the art, although it's phenomenal, I think, and many people have commented on that. Why wouldn't you? It's just really great. Now, it may not be to your style, but it is certainly thematic to the game, and I'll just show you here the fireman's helmet here. Really fantastic detail here with the cigarettes and the hands, and the art is just fantastic. It really is, and it does a lot to involve you in this game. It's campy, it is over the top to some extent, and of course maximum apocalypse, that's what you would expect. So there's a werewolf in the mountains, and the priest it's drawn to the priest. It will attach itself to the priest, and therefore we will place it here. It's going to do 3 damage. It has a health of 9, and again, if it has taken damage, its attack value is going to be doubled at 6. So that's quite a lot, especially when we only have 20 health. As we did not scavenge in the garden, we still have 2 actions left. So what we could do is we could just blast it away for 6 with our mid-range weapon here, and we're certainly going to do that. So for our third action, we're going to expend 1 ammo. We're going to deal 6 damage to this werewolf. I don't know if we'll be able to eliminate it this turn, but we will definitely not delay in attacking it, and be sure to indicate that was our third action. We have 1 more action left, and whoops, I ran out of battery, or rather storage. And if you watch my channel enough, you know anytime I run out of storage, it means I really love a game. Doesn't mean I don't love a game if I don't run out of storage, but if I run out of storage, I just love the game, and I do love this game, and I ran out of storage. So in any case, I was saying that this incense burner, I can burn some incense. It's a short range action. I can deal 3 damage to all monsters attached to me. So this werewolf with his 6 damage from the gun here and the incense is actually going to be dispensed with fairly easily. So I got rid of him. That would be my last action, and that is the end of my turn. And regrettably, I'm going to leave the priest and the fireman right here because there's a couple of other things I want to talk about with the game and show you, and I can't get back to the fireman and still be able to do that. I'm going to give you a spoiler alert. If you don't want to look at the monsters contained in this vampire monster deck, stop the video right now and fast forward it. But I'm going to show you, just going to show you some of the other ones. We didn't get a chance to see it. Well, here's another werewolf, and this actually does bring up a point. One of my dings on the game is that there are a lot of repeat enemies within a deck, and I did some of the percentages for some of the deck, and in some cases you're really only getting 25% of new enemies, and I think that's a little unfortunate. I would have liked fewer repeats in the thematic deck, but be that as it may, we have a succubus, and she will deal damage to all players in range, of course, and she will drain life. I'm not sure on the top of my head what that means, but it certainly makes thematic sense, and there she is. Let's see what else we have. We have a vampire. There's a bunch of vampires here. He will also drain life. Frankenstein we already saw. He was attached to us at the beginning. And again, you're seeing the theme here. There are repeats. And the ghoul we already saw. Werewolf again. Succubus again. Gunslinger. This is an ally. The allies, I believe, are new to the expansion. I placed some allies in here. Basically, what an ally means is that it comes in as an enemy, and there is a mechanic by which you attempt to draw the ally to your side, and in this case, you would do it by supplying or giving away 2 blue scavenge cards that you had to persuade him to come to your side. You stock him as you would stock any other item, and he takes up a space. But the difference is he can fight for you, and he also, that's another way to mitigate the difficulty of a deck, because you can, the more allies you put in this enemy deck, the easier the game will become if you are able to get them onto your side. Now, I realize what I've shown you so far makes the game seem somewhat easy, even with my misstep of letting the fireman get poisoned, but it's really not an easy game. Things go south pretty quickly once monsters start coming in and you're surrounded everywhere. Again, another werewolf. This is another ally, the Army Ranger ally. Succubus. Dracula. He's a boss monster, and he's got 22 health, and when you draw him, you need to place a monster token on all adjacent map tiles, so that's pretty bad. You could see, for example, depending on where he came in, you could end up with a lot of monster tokens there. And I'm not going to show you all of these. Another vampire. I'll just show you one more, and another ghoul. So again, a ding a little bit on the game. I love the fact that there is just such a mishmash of genres of monsters, and for that matter of characters here. I'm going to pull in and show you what I've got here with the vampires, the zombies, robots, mutants, dinosaurs, the Cthulhu we haven't even gotten to, the aliens. Yet there are, with all of that, there are a lot of repeats, and perhaps that was necessary because of the scope of things. It would just be too difficult maybe to have everything be unique. However, personally, I would have preferred a lesser a scope, as it were, and really a unique deck of enemies that didn't have as many repeats. The other thing I'd like to show you, and this is the day-night mechanic. This is coming from also the Gothic Horror set, where you can add in these day-night cards that will have effects mostly negative, although here is a safe haven. So basically, as you're traveling, you're changing from day to night. And I haven't played with this yet, but I think it is very thematic and something that I'm going to factor in when I start playing. Once I use it, I think I'll probably always use it. So again, it is new prey. Pass any monsters attached to you to the player on your right. Pitch black. Players can only attack monsters from short range. So these are little more thematic effects. Survivor encounter. Each player may discard a card to draw a scavenge card from the scavenge deck of his or her choice. You can see again every effect on the card is very well thought out in terms of carrying the theme of the card through. And we'll just take a look a little bit more at the deck that the priest has to see what that looks like. So for example, here's a communion card. It's short range and it can reduce hunger by 2 and restore 1 health for all players in range. That makes sense as communion, and it certainly makes sense for something that the priest would have. We saw the arcane knowledge card already. Again, there are also repeats in the deck of cards for the characters, and that's a little bit more understandable, I think, as things go. But there are quite a few repeats because we've seen most of these. Here's a protective ward. Choose a character. That character is immune to damage and status effects until the start of your next turn. So you can see how the priest is thematically developed as a priest would be, and that is certainly the case for all of the characters that I have played. Again, on the base game, there's a lot of videos out here showing various playthroughs and characters. I really wanted to focus on the new material in this Gothic Horrors. And the last thing is, of course, the Cthulhu mythos. And you may wonder, well, does the world need another Cthulhu game and theme? And I think what works here is the lightness of this game, bringing in Cthulhu in this light kind of way. So we have somewhat familiar, if you play any kind of Cthulhu games, we have these phobias basically, or negative impacts or crazy things that happen to you when you encounter the horrific enemies of Cthulhu. And the Cthulhu deck of enemies here is, well, pretty scary. The Gobbler. And again, you can see this is unsorted. Well, it's a little bit unsorted. We have an insane clown. So he's going to cause you to draw an insanity card. The Dismantler. Destroy an equipped gear. Gear is what you have down the backpack items. So that would really stink. And then when you destroy him, you have to also discard a card. So again, you can see he's the Dismantler, very, very thematic to what he is. Cultists, of course, deal damage to all players in range. That's pretty scary. Lots of cultists and other Cthulhu type of the dark young of monsters. So that also comes with the Gothic Horrors expansion. And combining that with the day-night cards and the insanity, you do really get a Cthulhu-ish or Cthulhu-esque feel. And I think what's great about the game with all of this variety is that if you're playing, for example, the gunslinger and the hunter, it feels very different, even if you're doing the same kind of mission, than if you're playing the priest and the fireman. The characters feel very different. The monsters, even though they are repetitive, they do carry through thematically, as I have demonstrated, to make them feel different from one another. And in that regard, it has a lot of replay value. I think in the end, for me, this is probably best played as a game with other people rather than solo, even though you can do it quite effectively solo as I showed you. But you could see in the example that I gave where the interaction between the characters is very much highlighted and I think makes the gameplay shine. And when you have a game like that, can be fun when it's a light game to have that be around the table with your other players. I think probably 2, maybe 3 is the best size for this. It says 1 to 6. I think that would, the upper numbers there to me would be a lot. But playing 2 or maybe 3 would be perfect. What is great about it is that it's easy to explain, I think, to somebody who's basically a non-gamer. I could definitely see this as being the kind of thing I would pull out if I had people over who expressed interest in playing games, knowing that it's my hobby, but not really having more experience than something like Scrabble. This, I think, is something that you could get somebody into because you could get them interested in, well, they're interested in dinosaurs or robots or vampires or zombies, and start there and then go to the very wide range of different types of scenarios that you can do. I mean, more or less, it's pick up and deliver. That's what it is, but it's okay. I mean, it does really work thematically, and there are some that are a little bit of a mini campaign where you can do one thing and then the next thing and the next. And in fact, the vampire that I was showing, the vampire vamp thing that I was showing you is indeed that, because once you have the vaccine, then you do something else on the next scenario. So that is a look inside the Maximum Apocalypse with the Gothic Horrors expansion that is just out. It is a game by Mike Nade, as I said, and it is published by Rock Manor Games.